When I had this 2,600 square foot Amish barn built in 2024, I thought my most expensive reoccurring cost every month was going to be to heat this thing. As you guys can hear from the echo in my voice, this is a very open space. I have 26-foot tall ceilings. This is a large room, many windows, and we have sub-zero freezing temperatures here in upstate New York, way upstate New York, for the majority of the winter. I grew up not far from here outside of Albany County, so I was no stranger to, even in a small house, seeing the electric heating bill being around $200, $300, even $400 a month. I grew up in an old home, so it was not energy efficient, which didn't help anything, but the size of the house square footage wise was a fraction of this, not to mention there was no big open atrium type of space. So again, I thought with this type of space, I would be looking at anywhere from $300 to $500 a month to heat this thing. I was okay with that because I did have the structure built still to run a business first and foremost, which that is still the plan. And I will be taking you guys along with me regarding everything I learned about that this year, as well as what is earned here at the farm. But in this video, I'm gonna break down what my reoccurring heating costs are for this structure. If you're somebody who is thinking about having a barn built, a barndominium, you wanna start farming or anything like that, you're probably gonna find this useful. If you don't plan on doing anything like that and you're just curious what it costs to heat this thing, I'm happy to tell you that too. I will be honest, I was absolutely shocked at how cheap it has been to heat a structure of this size. I am not saying my ongoing payment is a cheap payment, but for a structure of this size, in my opinion, it's a pretty good deal. So before I can dive into the numbers, I do have to explain the structure is heated via in-floor radiant heat. So underneath this concrete all around me are coils filled with steaming water that move throughout the floor. They radiate the heat up through the floor. It's coming up right now through my feet, and it's a very slow, steady released heat that rises up from the floor through the ceiling. A lot of the structures around here have that awful force blown hot air. I don't know how anyone ever thought that was a good idea. It comes out of the vents, barely dips down to heat anything, and escapes right up through the roof or out the windows, and then you're freezing. Not the case with this heat in this barn. I have never been in a warmer space this big in an area this cold. I have the thermostat set to 69 degrees, and sometimes I'll come in here and it'll be 73 degrees. That's just a norm with in-floor radiant heat. I will also note that inside of all of the walls around me, including the ceiling, is spray foam insulation. I understand that was not an ecological option, but at the time, you guys do also have to understand that I was just trying to make this work with the budget that I had. I did pay for the structure out of pocket. Someone's gonna comment and go, well, what did the structure cost? There is no one summary amount of money that can bundle up what this costs. I had everything from raw land developed to a driveway put in to the structure built, which is why in my Substack, I am a writer. I write about this every week, and I'm breaking down piece by piece what things cost. So I will link to that in the description below. I know rock wool would have been preferable from an ecological standpoint, but it just didn't fit in the budget for me. The Amish had their Amish cousin, who owns an insulation company, do the insulating, and they came 3 separate times. I will be honest and say this structure is so efficiently packed and insulated that I'm sure that contributes to how little heat is lost through the structure. Leave it to the Amish as always. If you have Amish near you, I can't recommend hiring them enough. No Amish person paid me to say that. I just think they are incredible and we have so much to learn from them. My heat is powered by propane, not by electric. So I'm gonna share with you guys the propane costs. The Amish buried my propane tank right outside there this past June. It is a 500-gallon tank. To have that tank filled up for the very first time, its gauge was at 0, was $1,400. Most people who own propane tanks know that the gauge will go up to 80, 85%. You can't fill it to 100%. So let's figure it was at 85%. When I checked the gauge this past January, it was only down to 50%. I had turned the heat on in October. So October, November, December, January, ticked the gauge from 80 down to 50. I absolutely did not need to have it topped off, but we were having such cold temperatures here. I don't know if I got a little paranoid or what, but I figured, hey, this might be a good time to just call the propane company, get it topped off, and that way I'm all set for the rest of the winter and I don't need to worry about it. By the time they came, when I checked, the gauge was around 45, 46. They filled it back up. That cost me around $700 when they did that in January. The gauge is now in the 70s. It's almost March, which means I am not going to have to pay for propane until next fall. I will be turning the heat off probably towards the end of April. That's what's normal in upstate New York. I do not have AC in the structure, and the propane will continue to power the shower and the hot water in the sinks here, which barely moves the gauge. I'm guessing I'll be calling the propane company probably next December, but for the purposes of this video, video, I'm gonna say both of those propane fillings, I'm gonna split it out over 16 months. So a year from June, and then another 4 months, we'll say, until I am gonna pay for additional propane. If you divide $700 plus $1,400, which comes to around $2,100, if you divide that out by 16, it comes to around $130 to $140 per month that I am paying to have this structure heated. If you say, well, that's cheating, you don't have the heat on 5 months out of the year, I'm just giving you guys the math breakdown here. You don't need to have AC in this part of the country. It is really only hot maybe for 1 or 2 weeks out of the summer, and the Amish actually had fans put in here that keep the structure nice and cooled, and we can also open all of the windows, of which there are many. As for my electric, there is obviously still electricity flowing through the structure. It does not factor into the cost of what my heating is. That is a separate charge. I did break down in another video all of the ongoing costs at my farm that I will link to below, and in that I share, which it has remained the same, my ongoing electricity costs in the structure every month come to around $80. So if you add $80 to $135, you get around $200 to $220, let's say, combined. It varies a little bit each month, to both heat this structure and power all of the electricity in it. For me, that was way below what I ever imagined it would cost to have something like that done in a structure like this. So if there's anything to take away from this, it's probably 3 things. 1, in-floor radiant heat is incredible. Having it powered by propane is incredible. 2, hire the Amish. 3, spray foam insulation, at least for a structure like this, has been incredible. I know one of the drawbacks of it is that it can cause the wood to sweat. It could prevent airflow in and out of here. I haven't really had that problem. I do open the windows all summer long and turn on the fans. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're new to the world of insulation. Last thing to keep in mind too is that they did insulate it 3 separate times to get it so unbelievably thorough. I'm not sure if that's a normal thing that insulating companies do, or if that's an Amish thing, because they just always go above and beyond to make sure everything is absolutely perfect. So if you hire an insulating company and they only do 1 round of spray foam insulation, don't be shy. Say, well, the Amish do 2 or 3 rounds. They might not like you. If you say that to them, you can say, Alex told me to say, you can blame it on me. A lot of people also tell me they aren't aware that you can have a propane tank buried. It's actually quite common up here. I'm not sure if you're allowed to have it buried nationwide, but I wanted my tank buried just for an aesthetic point of view. I want to do a lot of gardening and farming out there, so I just didn't want this huge green submarine looking type tank hanging out above ground. So they did go ahead and bury it last June while they were doing all of the other things here. It's something an excavating company can do for you if they are also putting in a parking lot or a driveway or whatever else they might be doing around your property. With that, I'm very excited. It is March. I cannot wait to get outside and start farming and gardening. I can't really do that until April here, and I'm also having the Amish come back to put in a public walking path around the perimeter of my barn. So I cannot do anything to the land until that path is put in and the ground is still very frozen. We have had quite an intense winter up here. So it's actually 41 degrees today. I'm hoping it stays above freezing to loosen the earth up so they can dig down into it in April. And I will obviously be documenting and filming that for you guys to follow along with here. And with that, I cover all things starting a farm by yourself with no idea what you're doing, land loans, getting a loan from Farm Credit East, finding a way to make money off farming without a tractor. That will be one of my pursuits this year. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe below, maybe write something nice if you want, and I will be back soon. Bye.